So we're going to be going through this helpful lesson plan. Now, why don't you tell us about, talk us through what it is that we're trying to achieve here, and we'll go from there.
So this is very much the element where we've sent students, before they've come to the class, a film, a video, and they are watching that, and then they have to show that they've watched that. So here they're looking at a thing on mass trespass in the UK in 1932, which is brilliantly historical and very far away, but of course it's very much of today, because it is about peaceful protest and non-violent protest. And you know, it's that thing, I think, where there is a lot happening in the world, and of course students want to talk about those things. This gives them a safe space to do that, because it's not about now, but of course it is about now, but it's not about now. The idea with this is that students will watch this short video, and then they will, so I would send that out maybe a week in advance, a few days in advance, and then the following day I would get them to do a Kahoot or some sort of survey where they can answer questions. But again, it depends on level of student and the people that they are. I might actually do a 5-10 minute video call where we'll just chat about that, or I will ask them to do a response video or reaction video. So they have to video themselves talking for 30 seconds about what they've seen. That's very powerful because, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So basically you're setting up that before unit, either, as you say, and this is almost just like that, like a trailer. You could even send a trailer if you were going to go through a documentary. Maybe there's an actual trailer of this particular documentary that you want to talk to them through. So you've created this before unit. You're either using, a LearnCube homework tool, you're using a Google Doc. Like, there are a multitude of ways that you can achieve this result. Just depends how sophisticated and systematic you want to be. Now they're in the class. So they've read this, they've answered some questions, maybe written some notes, as you say, maybe done a little video. So now they're in the class with you. What happens next?
So in the class, we're looking to the kind of chunk where we're either taking linguistic elements out of this that we want to explore as a group. So we might look at parts of the video, and we'll talk about that. What I would do again with this particular thing is just the Wikipedia entry for the mass trespass 1932 on Kinder Scout, and I would send that to students. So students in the class are all looking at this, and I would either put them in breakout rooms where they discuss it together and they read it together, and then they have to produce something from that. And that again depends on the aim of the lesson. I might get them to produce a summary of this, a written summary. I might get them to produce a spoken summary. I might get them to present to the class. So everybody gets about 5 minutes. Now, what we looked at there before is a YouTube video again of a song. So what I've often done with this, for example, is I'd send them the Wikipedia link, and I'd send them, to the whole class. That's all right. Everybody just take 5 minutes to read through this. During that 5 minutes, they're listening to Ewan McCall singing The Manchester Rambler, which is, of course, about the Kinder Scout mass trespass in 1932. And again, it's distant enough that we're not touching raw political nerves in the classroom, but it's common themes and elements of what's happening in the world today in terms of injustice, in terms of people's responses to a situation that they're not happy with. And so people are going to have opinions, because obviously you want to be able to talk about things that people have opinions about, but you don't want fights. So I would often get them to read through this thing, and they've got to either answer questions on it, or they've got to produce something from it. Again, a spoken thing is what I'm kind of aiming to get to. But they're listening to the song when they're doing that. So they're doing that in breakout rooms, or they're doing that all together. And then we're bringing them together at the end of that. And we're either reviewing what pairs have done in their breakout rooms, and so they're coming to us and they're telling us what they've done, or we're all looking at written pieces. So we're doing kind of peer correction of written pieces, which again we can easily exchange through whichever platform we're using. And the next element then is to look at the song, and so that easily enough kind of whiteboard, putting lyrics up and breaking the lyrics down into chunks, and talking just through the basic narrative of the story of this person who likes going on the mountains, and they meet somebody who tells them they're not allowed to go on the mountains, and then they want to get married, and then they decide they don't want to get married and they want to go on the mountains, and basically they want to go in the mountains. And we're kind of breaking that down in terms of, and I think this is really interesting because again it's cultural, where I've used this with Italian students who and chaos but brilliant, have said at the end of the class, they've said, oh, can we play the song again? And I've gone, yeah, okay. So I played the song again, and all the students spontaneously have sung along with the song, right? And obviously British students would be mortified to do that and would rather die than publicly sing. Whereas of course, Italian students are, very relaxed, very enthusiastic, and will just sing cheerily along. And doing that online is hilarious because it's like some sort of terrible karaoke night, but it's fun, and why not?
And it breaks the ice, right? Like, again, what I like hearing about this particular lesson plan that you've got is more just how it exemplifies the fact that you've thought about there's a before, during, and after component. It's got just the right amount of variety with using multimedia. It's all super seamless because you're only really, these are tools that everyone can access quite easily. And you're talking a lot about this interactive piece, and I like how you're not only setting the cultural scene with your students to begin with, you're introducing yourself and the personality with the song, and then you're going on to talk about you were talking about like how to create a bit of controversial chatter, and you're doing that in a way that really pushes speaking time as well.
And I think what I'd often do as the ending element, but they sort of carry on, is saying maybe, how can you relate that to any events happening today? Because then they're going to talk about things like the climate strike, they're going to talk about stuff like the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're going to talk about things that to them are relevant. But what they talk about, what they say about that is entirely up to them. So it's not me saying, you should be writing about this, you should be talking about this, you should be thinking about this, because why would I inflict my opinions on them? It's very much saying to them that these are questions you may want to answer, and have a look at these elements as your homework. And so they take it away and they kind of filter it through their own mind and produce something. Again, they might produce written work, they might produce video work, they might produce a mixture of all of those things. Again, they may exchange them before the next class, and that is the teaser. So the teaser, for example, here is I'm saying to them, right, well, can you think of any events in here now that are relevant to this, that are like this? And they go away and they write about Greta Thunberg, or they talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, or they talk about things that have resonated with them, and they then exchange that. And that is their teaser. That is the thing that you get a video from your mate Marco that talks about this, or you get a thing from Helmut that said this, and you bring that back to the class, and there we've got the momentum. And we've got the motivation, because they're responding to each other, because they're much more interesting than I am, And again, I think that's the elements that we've looked at here are ways of talking about things that are difficult to talk about, that are not filtered through me. Because my opinion on these things, of which I've got, endless opinions on these things, and vociferous opinions on these things, but they don't need to know those opinions. Not because it's bad to give them those opinions, but because they've got their own opinions. And I'm respecting their ability to have those own opinions. And they may argue, and that's all right.
Yeah, and also you're saying, look, you're here to learn a language. Certainly, I can teach you how to communicate your views. That's my job, for sure. Yeah. But my job isn't to say that my views are better than yours. And I like how you're kind of treating this with care, but with respect, and empowering them to communicate their views, because that's just as important, right? So you're really able to talk, hey, how do you relate this to the present day? And one thing I was thinking of was how you might even allow them more, like allow some controversy in the class, but also allow the people that are a bit more private to have maybe much more honest views, maybe in a video after the class. Maybe that's their way of getting out what they really want to say, but in a safer method, which they may not feel quite as judged. So there's other ways that you can do that as well.
Well, it's interesting, particularly in the last few months, talking to people who are teaching online for the first time, where they, particularly in the UK and North America, are desperate to shy away from any controversy and desperately trying not to engage on topics which might lead to debate. Whereas I'm kind of saying, well, I think it's great. It's normal to debate. And why would people not talk about what's happening around them? Because that's what they want to talk about. If I get them to come to class and practice buying bananas, they don't want to buy bananas. They want to talk about what's happening outside, doing some work with a group of students in Belarus, teachers, and we're doing a teacher training element. And obviously, they want to talk about what's happening in Belarus. Now, I have no qualification to talk about what's happening in Belarus. I've been to Belarus a few times. It's great. But you know, my opinion on that doesn't matter. They all know much more than I do because they're there. They don't need me to tell them what they think about the situation. They're able to articulate that.
But that's why I really like your strategy of using past events that are super relevant to today in order to effectively talk about today without talking about it, if that made any sense. But it actually goes around the point, but I really love that. And I think it's super valuable because you can give them all the tools to be able to speak with opinions about something that happened in the past. So there, it kind of creates that distance, but all of those tools are able to be applied in what it should be, which is real life.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
great. Thom, this was fantastic, an absolute pleasure. And again, so full of hidden gems there. So if you're listening in, I hope you've enjoyed it too. And please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you're going to learn more in our LearnCube University that's also coming out too. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thanks ever so much. Pleasure. Cheers, man.